Mr. Saldana, the man, the myth, the legend. Nice to see you again on this wonderful Friday. How you doing, buddy?
Doing great. Had a actually phenomenal week. So yeah, good things all around. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. We're plugging away. We're doing loans. We're doing some loans for you. We've got some great clients. And today I wanted to talk about your flipping business, right? Now, you flip for yourself, you
Yep.
flip for others, you flip for clients. Many people know you as just a really good agent, Colorado agent, and they don't know that you're flipping and um, have that stout background of construction, managing crews, finding deals, raising money, but securing debt. So I want to ask you a bunch of questions about that. Some of these I know the answer because we've done deals together. But I think there's a tremendous amount of value that all of us can get from you because how long have you been flipping? Let's start there.
So yeah, I think I started back in 2010. I think that was when we did our first flip back
Okay.
in 2010. So 14 years ago now.
14 years. That's 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 some time, right? Old man, let's see those gray hairs, right?
Yeah, no
Um,
kidding.
so you flip for yourself, you've got some partners. You also, when you're selling people's houses, sometimes you're like, hey, this thing needs to be remodeled in
Yep.
order to maximize the value here. And seller, you're going to actually earn more money if we can improve your property. So I know that's not technically a flip, but let's start there. Walk me through that.
Yeah, totally. Whenever we talk to anybody, we are not a one-trick pony. We can't be in this business, right? The cost of acquisition for marketing is extremely high. Anybody who tells you otherwise either doesn't know or is lying.
Mhm.
And so whenever we have the opportunity to work with someone on the sell side, whether that's us as a cash buyer, whether that's us just as their agent, we started throwing into the mix, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago. We had our fund to flip with, right? And we started back in 2010. And I mean, the first flip we did was, gosh, where was it? It wasn't Highlands. It was like north of Sunnyside, just a little bit. And we bought it for like 115,000, right? And we did 15 grand worth of work, busted our ass, swinging the hammer the whole time. I have a bit of a construction background too. So I kind of know what I'm doing on a good chunk of stuff. And, we sold it. We ended up selling it for 165 or something like that, 160 at the end of the day. It took us over 6 months to find that first project, right? Like, and we were putting out offers every day, every week. We weren't real estate agents yet, so we were using other agents, and after that first deal, that's when I realized, like, my god, most agents don't know how to help someone buy a flip, right? And
Mhm.
so instantly got my license. That took me 2 weeks, I kid you not. Yeah, it was just, I went at it full time, got my license in 2 weeks. I was like, this is what it takes to get your real estate license. Oh my god, no wonder this industry is so jacked up, to say the least. The
Right.
barrier of entry is extremely low. And
Yep.
so we had our fund, right, that we were able to flip with. And we were doing one at a time. We weren't borrowing money. We were just, purely cash, doing all the work ourselves because that's the only way we knew how to find them with the right numbers,
Mhm.
right? So now I look back and I'm going, okay, our advantage, instead of like, oh, this was horrible the way we did it. No, I think it was actually the right way that we did it, in that I can look at a house today and go, okay, we can buy it at 400. It's potentially worth 600. It needs, 75 to 100 grand worth of work. Deal. But back then it was, okay, this deal is on the market. So everybody in the world is seeing it and it's up for 400. We might have to pay four and a quarter to get this. And our rehab's going to be 40 to 60,000, not 75 to 100, because we're doing all the work ourselves. So we paid more for properties. We did the work ourselves and we sold them eventually ourselves. And that's what, that was our basic model. And then we've grown and graduated since then. But our fund over the years, all of a sudden, wasn't buying us as much house as we wanted, right? Um, and so as prices increased, I mean, hell, they probably doubled from 2010 to 2015, right? 2016, something like that. So all of a sudden, like, we were like, well, shoot, can we even barely buy one with cash? Right.
Mhm.
And so we started looking into lending options and stuff like that. And that's when we started to graduate. But as we talk to sellers, and I'm not going to take the credit for this, Eric, my partner, who's a GC, is the one who came up with the program. And he offered to flip a client's house, right? With the idea that, okay, on a typical flip, our goal is to make 7 to 10% of the ARV as the profit, right?
Okay.
That's
Okay.
the number. So the quick equation, right, to work it backwards. And I tell clients this all the time because we're an open book and because we offer this, people can pull a bait and switch on us. And I'll tell you what I mean here in a second. We go in and we say, hey, your house is worth 600 all fixed up. It's going to take 75 grand to get there. So that makes our cash offer X, whatever that number is, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we were to go on the open market, right, there are people who will pay more than us, right, because they're doing the work themselves. They're homeowners, things like that are getting loans for properties that don't need to make a profit in 3 to 4 months. So
Yeah.
you'll probably make 5 to 10% more. Or we'll come in because now our X amount of dollars in our fund, maybe we couldn't buy that house at 400 grand, right? So we were going, well, shoot, it's going to take 75 to fix it up. So why don't we put in the 75 worth of work and we'll make money on doing the work. We'll fund the rehab, right?
Mm-hmm.
We'll make X amount of dollars on funding the rehab and doing the work. You pay for nothing up front. And then we'll sell it as your agent at 600,000 when it's all said and done. If it sells for 6.25, you make 25 grand more. If it sells for 575, you make 25 grand less. So now we're married, right? We're in a relationship together. We put up the money, we do the work. We are now your agent on the back end. So now instead of making 7 to 10% on a flip, right? Now we have a customer client who loves us because now we gave them an opportunity to make maybe 50 grand more, right? If they have the time, right? Each
Yeah.
option, cash, listing as is, the fix and list, which is what we, call it
Mm-hmm.
when we flip our clients' homes. Each one comes with more time and some more hoops. Each one comes with about 5 to 10% more in your pocket at the end of the day. So now we make money as being the real estate agent, right? And we charge a little bit of a premium there because we're now 3 months of communication before even going onto the market, right? And we make money on lending the money for the rehab and being the GC. So at the end of the day, maybe we make 4 to 5%, 6% instead of 7 to 10%. But we have now, when you look at the bigger marketing scheme, and this gets, I know, nitty gritty, we close 1 out of 16 leads, right? That's what our current numbers are versus most wholesalers I know, which are a one trick pony that need to buy them more aggressively than us so they can sell them to people like us. They're closing 1 out of 32 leads. We're both
Wow.
paying the same ballpark wise for these leads, right?
Mm-hmm.
Motivated seller type of stuff. But we have 2 other avenues, listing as is and flipping our clients' homes, to recoup that marketing expense so we can keep going, right? 1 out of 3 deals we write is for a cash purchase for us. The other 2 are either listings or fix and list where we flip our clients' homes.
That's awesome. That is, listen, if I'm a distressed seller, forget distressed. If I'm a seller
Yeah.
and I'm looking at options and the young kid knocks on my door, the wholesaler gives me some crazy low ball. Maybe you go with it. Maybe you're not as sophisticated. Maybe you don't know your options.
Yep.
Um, or if you knock on my door and you say, hey, I could buy this from you for cash. We could list it as is. We could fix it up, right? You're given fix it up and sell it, and now you're given the short, hey, I can buy this with cash. We close in a week, 2 weeks, or, hey, we list this and we're going to close in, best case 30, 45 days, worst case 60, 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
Or, the creme de la creme, or I shouldn't say the creme de la creme, the largest margin for that seller is to let a seasoned construction pro dial in their property, get it to the top of, its potential, and then exit it, say 3 months down the road.
Yep.
That's a great offering. And I tell you, it's got a lot of integrity to it as well,
Yep.
because I mean, how many wholesalers are out there just submitting 100 low balls a day, um, hunting for somebody who simply might be just ignorant to the process or might,
Yep.
dare I say, be compromised. I mean,
Yeah. And
your
it
model
happens that, I
is
mean,
amazing.
to kind of wrap that part of it up in the bait and switch thing of what I referenced, and then the equation, right? Which I tell my clients all day is that our equation is 85% of the ARV after repaired value minus the rehab. That creates a purchase for us. So that 15% we take off the top, right? That is for purchase costs, usually 1 to 2%. That is for holding costs, another 1-ish%, depending on the purchase price. Um, Sales cost of 6 to 7%. And then the remainder is the profit, right? And so that's what you're giving up as the cash offer from us. And the whole bait and switch thing, and this is why we put everything on the table, is because I come into you and I'm like, hey, 400 is the cash price. It needs 75 worth of work. 600 is the potential sales price. 575 is the conservative. 625 is the high end. So 600 in the middle. That's what we're shooting for. It's going to take 75 grand worth of work. We're going to give you 400. But then tomorrow, you're like, you know what? I just fell into 10 grand worth of money and I can live for the next couple of months. So why don't you flip my house for me instead of buying it for cash? Great. The rehab is 75 grand. Like there's no switching this up and
Mhm.
like changing it. Like, here's the numbers. This is reality. You let me know what works for you. But I mean, I just talked to a wholesaler yesterday, right? And it wasn't a wholesaler, came across as a cash buyer. And so I asked him his quick equation, and I get calls like this weekly. And I'll talk to wholesalers, and that's fine. I'll network with anybody. That's totally fine. And I'll teach them if they're new and they're getting run through the ringer by some investor that they called on one of those road signs that say, hey, make 6 figures a year as an investor, blah, blah, blah. It's bigger wholesalers wanting someone to just pound the phones, beat the streets, knock on doors to try to find a deal. And I asked him what his equation was. He asked me if I could help him buy a flip. I've never helped anybody buy a flip before, period. Because if the numbers work, I'm the buyer, right?
Right. Right.
So there's a conflict of interest there. Um, and then we find out, hey, they want contractors anyways. And hey, do you have money contacts? And next thing you know, you're like, well, I I don't need you like
Right.
as the potential buyer. Like we have the funds, we have the ability to do this stuff.
Yeah.
And so I asked him his equation, right? Because what is his advantage over me in the market? And his equation was 75% of the purchase price minus the rehab. And I said, well, I don't think I can help you. Like you're wanting to buy them at 10% less. On paper, it doesn't sound like a lot. But when you're
Right.
talking about a property, 400,000, you want to buy it 40 grand less than me and you want me to sell it to you? Like, I don't get it. Like, how are you going to find these sellers? Because if I'm willing to pay 85% of ARV minus rehab, I guarantee you there's people that will pay 90%, right?
Right.
And they are out there because they have some sort of competitive advantage where they can pay more than we can, right? And so 75%, I've never seen one of those deals. So I just ask people to send me their history, their track record, send me a couple of properties that you bought at those numbers so I can verify it. And then we'll see if we're a good fit to work together.
Yeah. How I think I know the answer, but how many of those wholesalers that cold call you do you end up working with?
I've worked with 2 over the last 14 years.
Okay.
Yep.
That
And
number is bigger than I thought it'd be.
and that's probably 0.1% of anyone
Mhm.
I've ever worked with, right? And they were based off of classes that I taught once upon a time. And years later, they end up reaching out or something happens around my weekly email, whatever. And then it like comes through the grapevine of like, hey, you know what? Why I got started in this business. I took a class, you were, teaching it, whatever, and you were my motivation. And I'm going, holy crap, like it's
Yeah.
amazing to hear. I love hearing that stuff. But yeah, you got to have your own. It's running your own business. Most people don't get that about real estate in general. It's a business, and you got to treat it like one.
Yep. Let's just side note here. What about those kids who call? Because you and I have had mentors, still
Yeah,
do have mentors. We've shared some mentors, Charles Roberts.
yeah,
Um, what sticks out about those kids coming back to you? What sticks out about those kids who listen to you and are winning in real estate? I mean, do you notice these characteristics up front? Does it, everybody talks a big game. Do you see something a year later? What are you noticing about the very few who actually execute? And I heard a mentor say a wonderful thing. I said, hey, you're giving away all your secrets, right?
Yeah.
You're just giving them away. I'm sitting here getting all this knowledge for free. And he's like, listen, less than 1% is going to listen to me anyway. I'm not scared. Nobody in this room is going to take away my deals. So,
No.
for those young or new people who want to get into flipping or want to get into real estate investing, I mean, what are you seeing the very few winners that you've come into contact? What are their characteristics?
They grind it out. They make mistakes and they keep plowing through. Their deals are small at first, right?
Yeah.
Same with us, right? They're $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 winners that took you 3 to 6 months to get there, right? But you were committed to making it happen, right? When I got on board with my partners today on flipping houses, one of them comes from a more traditional business background. I come from school of hard knocks. Like I'm straight up self-learned, self-taught. Fake it till you make it, keep grinding away, blah, blah, blah. And, his thoughts on the first flip was that if we lose money, it's okay on the first couple of deals. I went, whoa, no, no, no. Flipping a house is its own business on each house, right? If we don't make money on the first one, even if it's a few $1,000s, like there's no motivation to want to keep going on. And yeah, I've noticed that with the ones, and there's a personality trait. Now that you ask me about it, there is kind of a personality trait that the two of them, and I say two because it's literally those two, and I know them closely because we talk weekly, is their personalities are calm. They're not your hyped up salespeople, right? They're not your typical boiler room, hey, Wolf of Wall Street, talking stuff up. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Bye, 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 bye. They're both very subdued characters, right? And when I think about all my mentors in the past, right? Charles Roberts, right? Tom Herford, who was at one point flipping 60 plus homes a year. My partner, Eric Young, like they're all very even keeled is maybe the best way to say it, but willing to dig themselves out of any trench they get into.
Yeah. I would have to concur. So I've seen in the lending business, it's not the shiny suits that win, it's the grinders, right?
Yeah.
And you are planting seeds that might not sprout for a decade. People say, oh, Lawhead, it's easier for you. You've got all these relationships. Some of these relationships, I met these guys 11 years ago, right? Or 20 years ago. I mean, the first loan that I did, I got a loan when I first started lending as a traditional mortgage broker. I got a loan in, first day I was on the job, right? And people are like, how'd you do that? And it's like, I was honest and friendly with that guy. He was my friend, right? But he knew I was a trustworthy person for 20 years, right? 20 years of him knowing me allowed him to trust me, right? Now, fast forward a decade, 2 decades later, same deal. I'm working with people that I've known for many years, and it might have been a decade before we even did anything together, but they saw me at the meetups, or they, saw me working with one of their other clients, or they, we were in touch somehow. And I also like that you're pointing out that calmness. So
yeah,
real estate, there's bumps in the road, right? Things get wonky with lending, with title, with rehabs, with subs. I mean, I've been held hostage by an electrician, for God's sake. Not literally, but I mean, you know what I mean? If you're waiting for the electrician to do his job and get those permits pulled and inspections done, and everything else is done, he doesn't care that you're paying, 10% to your hard money lender. He doesn't care that you've got investors waiting. He's just an electrician. He's going to get it done whenever he's going to get it done. And I guess the point is, there's always these bumps in the road, and I've seen people freak out, and I've lost faith in doing deals with them. Because I've seen them lose their mind over little things. Hey, this closing has to be pushed back a day. No, it's not the end of the world. No, it's not. It's a day. Um, or hey, the appraiser, you think that this deal should be valued at 700 grand, and the appraiser thinks it should be appraised at 690. Okay, that's not the end of the world, but these things happen.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I like the fact that you're pointing out that calmness. My kind of armchair analogies, I've seen plenty of agents who I think, oh, their BMW payment is due, the day after this closing, right? And they don't have the money to pay for that Beamer. And that's half a joke, but half real, right?
Yeah.
That's so you can feel their stress, and I empathize. At the same time, this is a real business.
Mm-hmm.
There's real money involved. There's real stakes. It's high. You can make a lot of money. Therefore, there's a tremendous amount of competition. And I would agree 100% with what you're saying. Being a grinder and being calm while you grind, and being able to simply get punched in the face and keep moving forward. Right. Take that Rocky quote. You know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah, 100%.
So, all right, let's just pivot into the lending side, right? Because you've worked with conventional lenders and govy lenders, FHA, VA, USDA, as an agent, right? And you've worked with lenders as a flipper, private lenders.
Yep.
Everybody's got a nightmare story with working with a lender. Everybody, including me, and I am a lender, right? And it's these relationships go up and down, and they wane and they wax. Give me your take. Let's start with the conventional stuff you've worked with.
Yep.
Give me your experiences, why you've liked certain lenders, why you will never go back to certain lenders. And let's talk specifically about people buying single family homes, clients of yours buying single family homes or selling. Let's start there.
Yeah. So, we've used everybody when it comes to the lending side. I mean, hell, I've had clients that on the buy side wanted to use Rocket Mortgage, right? And I was like, oh my God, you go into these things with these preconceived notions of what's going to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've always been told that all the big boys suck, right? I don't know. I've never done a deal with them. Like, who does a deal with Rocket Mortgage or Quicken or whoever,
Mm-hmm.
And this dude pulled off with his 3-week closing with an incredible rate. But the buyer was on their ass daily because I told him, I was like, hey, I've never done a deal with him. I don't know what we're gonna have, come up, but he got a good rate out of it. He was on them every single day, and they performed 100%. So that's one end of the spectrum of like, we have super low expectations, and holy crap, they pulled it off in a very competitive market. And then on the other side, I've had the lenders that, and it comes up a lot on the when buying a flip. So, and I've had clients of mine that I've helped that we buy a flip. But there's appreciation kind of rules in play for a lot of different lenders, and they don't know what they are, right? And so whenever I'm working with a buyer or even a seller that has a nice house, I interview who the lender is going to be, whether that's for the buyer or for the seller. It doesn't matter which side of the contract I'm on. And specifically because I've fallen into this myself, flipping houses, go to put a house on the market. We bought it at 150. It's now worth 300,000. Whoopsie, that apparently hits some sort of rule with most lenders that you can't appreciate a certain amount in X amount of time, or else you get flagged. And now they have to throw you into a desk review or a secondary appraisal. And that happens 3 days before closing after all your dates and deadlines have already passed.
Yep.
Right.
And now your money's hard. Your hard money's at risk. Yeah.
Like everything's at risk. The whole deal's at risk. Like, crap, are we going to be on the market for another month or two? Like, oh my God, this could cost us $6,000, $8,000, $10,000, and on the buy side, I've helping buyers. It's the first step, right? And I always have a few lenders that I throw out. Obviously, you're one of them. You're top priority because I know you perform, like, period. I mean, hell, you pulled off right before Thanksgiving. Was it an 8-day clear to close on a friggin' conventional townhome? Like, what the hell was that? Like it came out like I saw the clear to close and I was like, you got to be shitting me. Like we got another 2 weeks for this thing to close. And that was already fast,
Yeah.
you know? And I've had other pro lenders that I've worked with in the past that, all of a sudden their communication goes 100% dark, and you're left there going, God, is the appraisal even getting ordered? Like, what is happening here? So, you know, there's a level of communication, and this goes back to the last point too on being calm and cool and collected. And I think
Yeah.
it spans every industry. One of my favorite GCs, Armando, I've never seen him get upset. He's done $250,000 rehabs for us. Never seen him raise his voice, and with lenders too, going back to that, car salesman personality versus that even keeled person, is things are going to get rocky, right? Everybody loves each other at the beginning of a transaction. We're going to have some bumps in the road. So if it's real contentious right at the beginning, like with just personalities and like, hey, I asked a pretty simple question on, do you have any, requirements for appreciation value? And you perk up and go, no, we don't have that sort of shit. And yeah, you probably do. Like, I'm not asking this because I'm making this up. Like, I'm asking this because I've experienced this before. Just tell the freaking truth. Like,
Yeah.
our mentors, like, how often does Charles, has he said, like, I've been in this business for what, 30, 40 years? And he's like, I learn new crap every day,
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so it's just that importance of having that good communication with a local lender, right? That knows our market, that knows appraisal times, is just it's more than important. Like, it is your ability to buy a house, right? Or sell a house for that matter. Cash versus conventional versus FHA. I don't like cash offers on the sell side. Like, I just don't. They think their shit doesn't stink and they think they can get more, off. They can negotiate more. No, not unless you're giving me something for that. At the end of the day, the cash is in my account no matter what. And I love FHA. I love VA buyers, right? They're
Mhm.
they're committed to the house. Is how I typically view it, right? They're scratching their clawing at the dirt to make their dream happen. They're probably borrowing a down payment from their folks, and at the end of the day, they want this house, right? They want a house and they want this house. And they're willing to put it all on the table. And it might only be, a little bit below asking or right at asking versus someone coming in, a couple percent over. But depending on that story, like, we ask me how many times we've taken a lower offer because we were more secured on getting to the closing table, right? With the right lender on
Right.
the front end.
Well, it always surprises me when a selling agent doesn't want to speak to the lender at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Um, in my humble opinion, you should be asking, are you a banker or a broker?
Yep.
There's pluses and minuses. What have you done to pre-approve them? Have you actually pulled credit? Have you actually gotten their tax returns, W-2s, pay stubs? Have you actually verified they have down payment in their bank account, right? Or is this just a lead that's been sitting on your desk and now is turning real, and you're going to go do all these things?
Mm-hmm.
Now, so I was selling a deal. I was selling a fourplex, one of my personal ones, and got an offer. And so my agent, asked me to wanted to hear a lender vet the lender, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we got on the phone. He didn't say anything, and I just vetted this lender, right? And I asked him all these questions, and he had all the right answers, right? But he was a little hesitant. And he was just, you could tell he's just telling me what I wanted to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got off the phone and I go, listen, if everything he just said is true, he's done his homework. However, he just told me he pulled credit, right? He just told me, so, and it ended up, they couldn't secure that deal. And guess what happened a week or two into that, because I like weekly updates.
Yeah.
I don't need to hear from the lender every day,
Nope.
right? But I like weekly updates. And me, I like to send the videos,
Mm-hmm.
the video updates. Now this lender went dark, right? And once they go dark, you're in trouble. But as a seller, you're under contract. It's kind of out of your hands to a degree, right? because the folks who are going to cancel that contract are the buyers, right?
Yeah.
They're going to cancel because of inspection or appraisal. And then the appraisal wasn't ordered, or we didn't get a request for the appraisal. And I'm going, okay, well, then he probably hasn't ordered the appraisal. Call him, leave him a voicemail. Hey, have you ordered the appraisal? He doesn't respond. Call him back. He answers, hey, have you ordered the appraisal? No, we're confirming some of their income stuff. Oh, yeah, the income stuff that I asked you about before I said yes to accept this offer. Yeah, that stuff. So just because, listen, you got to ask all the right questions, right? I guess my point is, even when you ask the right questions, you can still get the runaround. And guess what? This is real estate, right? This is what it is. And what I tell everybody who's starting to get into real estate, right, and they're getting stressed and they're having a hard time with their lending or whatever they're doing, it's all worth it, right? Your future self will be grateful that you're participating in real estate. That's obviously my biased opinion, because I have seen wonderful things, wonderful wealth built through people participating in real estate. So yeah, I'm biased. So I do think it's worth it. And the people who get through all these deals are like you said, the calm, I'm on it. There's a request. I fulfill that request the next day or the same day. And, these quick 7-8 day clear to closes, we can't take all the credit for those. Like, we do our job, but it's the borrower who we say, hey, we need an updated pay stub. 5 minutes later, we got an updated pay stub. Those are the ones who get those early clear to closes. Those are the ones who have a stress-free transaction. It's the ones who say, oh, I'll get you that pay stub. 2 weeks later, after 5 requests, that pay stub isn't in. And then it's like, hey, no pay stub, no updated pay stub, no house, So anyway, what about hard money lenders? What about hard money lenders that you've used to buy flips? Give me your 2 cents on your experience with those guys. So I guess that's including me, right? Because we've lent you hard money, and give me the cold-hearted truth, my friend.
Totally. I didn't even know what the hell hard money was a decade ago, right? Like, didn't even know it was a thing. I assumed we had to go to a bank. And my lender at the time, I just asked him, I was like, hey, why can't we buy these houses conventionally? Right? Like, and that's a valid question. You want to flip a house? Why don't you just go to, a typical broker or Chase or Wells Fargo to borrow money to flip a house? And his answer was, well, you could, but that's probably the only loan you'll ever get from them. And I went, oh, really? Why is that? Well, because we don't make money until it's after whatever it is, 2 years or something like that on the loan. I don't know what the number is.
Well, I'll tell you, there's the dreaded EPO, early payoff. So if I do a conventional loan for you, and you refi that loan or sell it, and you pay off that loan in the first 6 months, my commission that I made, I have to return. All that work I did, you have to return. There is no pay.
I didn't know that. So now
I piss EPO.
You off as the broker, even though you might have used a different lender. Gotcha. Okay, that makes perfect sense. So yeah, as our money, going back to when we started, and our, all of a sudden our funds aren't going as far to flip as much house as we want to, or as many as we want to. We had to start digging into what the options were. And, you're going to find a myriad of options out there, and half of them seem like crooks, right? A quarter of them just seem like, Tom around the corner who happens to have extra cash. And then you have a few outfits that are legit businesses, right? That are not emotional about anything, going back to that, theme of the day, apparently. And what you find in that space, so it's totally different, right? So like when we borrow funds, we're not stretching the limits, right? Everybody advertises either 100%, funding of the house and the rehab, or 90% of the house and 90% of the rehab. I mean, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know what a draw is. I don't know how to pay my contractors based on a draw. I've never done it. So the way we structure ours to make ours as good as possible, as easy as possible, right? Our whole philosophy is, the more attractive we are to do business with, from whether that's the seller to a lender to another buyer's agent, whoever it is in the deal. That's what we're going to strive to do, right? So when we borrow money, we want to make it such a no-brainer, stupid thing that you even make me feel bad putting any information in,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the way we do that is we don't borrow rehab, right? So if our rehab's 75 grand, we want at least 75 grand in the bank, period. Um, if the purchase price is 400,000, we want to borrow maybe 70% of it max, right? So we're borrowing 300, three and a quarter, whatever that number is. So at the end of the day, because you got to look at it from your business perspective. Okay, so these guys want to borrow money on the house. Forget their history and that they actually know what they're doing, because lots of people don't. Lots of mom and pops flip houses, and they go to a lender and they're like, "Great, we've got 30 grand. We want to flip a house." Holy crap! No, you don't. I promise you, you don't want to flip a house with 30 grand. Your holding costs alone are probably going to be close to 30 grand on most properties. But when we borrow, so it's 70%, we want you to know that, okay, this house in its current shape is worth 400,000, and that's already probably a 50 grand discount from what it would sell for on the MLS. So worst case scenario, I die, I kick the ball, all my partners die, and the bank, the lender now owns our house. You can get out of it free and clear without any hardship, right?
Yeah.
And so I want our lenders to be able to tell that to their partners um and never be questioned on a deal, right? Because when I have a deal that I want to close in 3 days, I want to know that it's going to get done. Period. I want that trust to be there 100%. But
Yeah.
most of the hard money lenders out there, because they're private money people, they're someone who had an inheritance or something and they have a few $1,000,000 sitting aside that they want to make 10 to 15% on. And the prices range, right? The most common I see out there is like 10 and 2, meaning 10% interest, 2 points, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, on a $400,000 purchase, that's 8 grand up front. And then whatever that, monthly nut is going to be, 20 something, $2,500 a month, let's just say. And that's totally one option, but we're fast, right? We don't hold properties for 6 months.
Right.
4 months is a long time. Our average flip is 127 days from close to close, right? And so, okay, we've got 3 months of interest. We spec in 5 months hold time, right? Or 6 months on our numbers, but we go in reality, we're going to be on this thing for 3 months. Um, so that 10 and 2, all of a sudden, in comparison to someone that's like a 14 and 0, 15 and 0, even, um, the 15 and 0 is way more attractive. And especially when you come into the scenario where you have too much property and you need to wholesale it off, right? And now there might be 10 to 15 grand on the table for a wholesale deal to somebody else who's going to swing the hammer, right? So everybody's kind of winning in this scenario. And now I only have to pay 1 month's interest instead of 8 grand up front plus the interest. It just leaves a lot more flexibility. But yeah, in this space, I mean, I've had hard money lenders throw me curveballs days before closing. Um, secondary appraisals or all of a sudden, or just regular appraisals, all of a sudden, you're like, what the heck is going on? So things change in the background that you don't see with these lenders. And I don't know if there's different rules and requirements versus being a traditional, Fannie Freddie lender. I'm assuming there is. Um, but it's a much more sharky space, right? If
Yeah.
that's the way to put it. You got to know who you're dealing with. You got to know who you're working with. Um, so that way they're not being, and I know the word predatory is probably horrible to say, but at the same time, I've seen it right
There.
firsthand.
Yeah.
I've seen people get approved for hard money loans that should not be, and ARVs somehow approved when there's no way in hell. It's an emotional space, and you just, God, if you don't have a relationship with the hard money lender, like, this business isn't going to work for you, period.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you earn those relationships, right?
Yeah.
You don't start off your first flip and walk into a hard money shop and you're treated like gold, right?
Nope.
No, you're a scary bet if you've never flipped. And then you have guys like you with over a decade experience. Well, you're sought after,
Yeah.
right? So those people who are new, you should not expect to be treated like Alex is treated, right? Alex can show whatever 14 years history of doing this, a gazillion closed deals, and so you've kind of earned the right to be out of that 10 and 2, 12 and 2 range, and you can be in the flat, no prepay penalty, flat rate, whether you're holding it for 6 months or 6 days.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, and agreed. I've seen those borderline predator. I don't want to accuse anybody of being a predator, but we know that they're out there. But you do see 16% and 4 points.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. You do see them lending on bad deals, but they're cross collateralized with that borrower's other houses, rentals, other assets. And now, so that borrower hasn't put, just the deal at risk. They've put their whole, financial, their whole balance sheet at risk.
Yeah. And there's only one way I see deals like that happening. Like when I see these 90%, 100% fund 4 and 16 loans, like legitimately 4 points, 16% interest for 100% funding. I'm going, the only way that deal pencils if you are stealing the fucking house from grandma.
Yeah.
Because other than that, it makes zero sense. You talk to one other person, there's minimally $75,000 more meat on that property than whoever's offering and getting the deal written, or everybody's in cahoots that the speculation on what it's going to sell for is 10% higher than what it actually is. Like, I don't know how they pencil. You know what I mean?
Right.
Hell, deals are hard enough to pencil on a pure cash basis, let alone borrowing. And then borrowing at those amounts, I don't get it.
Well, yeah, and full disclosure here, everybody. So I've lent my personal funds and my close, tight-knit group investors funds to Alex because he's one of the best bets we see, right? And he articulated that. He's going into a deal. He's putting 30% down. He's buying the deal as it sits, with plenty of meat on the bone already, right? And we're lending to someone who has, well into the double digits. I don't know if you're into the triple digits. You probably are triple digits in terms of closed flips. And then you're funding all the rehab yourself. So I don't trust anybody. We don't trust anybody who doesn't have scratch in the game. And so the people the new flippers who call me and they want 100% acquisition and all the rehab to be borrowed, right, to be lent to them. We just won't do that, right? I know that there's some other outfits that will do that. We don't even remotely have the stomach for that because we're seasoned and conservative, and we've earned these gray hairs, and so that's why frankly, you're exotic fruit, right? You're exotic fruit because you've been. Because of your history, because of your stability, because of your fundamentals, because everybody watches whatever HGTV, and everybody and their mom's a flipper, right? Those are the scariest because listen, anybody who's remodeled a house, you go, that should cost $10,000. And it costs $25,000, right? And they go, I can't imagine that not cost anything more than $22,000, and it costs $40,000. Right. And that eats away not only your profit, but your ability to repay that loan very, very quickly, especially if you're at 100% or 90% of the whole project cost financed. Yeah. So, that's great insights. And it clearly articulates why you're such a stable bet, right? And why me and my partners like you. And we have a personal relationship too. So those of you listening, I mean, when you are just shopping for the lowest rate, right? And that's your whole game. I'm going to call 100 lenders. Whoever gives me the lowest rate, I'm going to go with them. Good luck with that, right? Yeah. Good luck. That is unsustainable, right? You need to know who you're dealing with, and you need to have a personal relationship if you can make that happen, right? I understand that there's these massive lenders who have $1 billion and they're not set up to have a personal relationship, right? Your vice president is leaving. There's a new vice president every month in some of these shops, and fair enough. Everybody's got their business and they make things work however they make it. But we prefer to be relationship based. Obviously, you prefer to be relationship based because that's what keeps you in the game for 14 years.
Yeah, but then there's the whole extra factor of going back to treating people right and keeping your cool. is that those relationships, even if we don't ever work together, right? Like, I mean, hell, I think I said that to you for years before we did a deal together. Like, hey, this might pay off at some point, right? And then sure as shit, it does.
Yeah.
One deal is never exciting, right? And that's what I tell all my clients too. One I'm buying right now, closing in a couple of weeks. Um, we've built a relationship, for crying out loud, and their kids are getting ready to buy a house and they're getting ready to downsize and all this stuff. And so it's like, here's all the numbers on the table. They live down the street from the freaking house. They're probably going to be driving by it every single day to see how things are going. And that relationship, even if I don't make much money on it, right, will yield other things. Now we will, but it will yield other opportunities and other things for both of us, right? Two-way street. Likewise, when they need a contractor, I promise you, the people I give you are going to be more likely to call you back. They're going to be most likely the best price that you could possibly get, and they're going to blow you away, right? So, like, it's that other factor, just like you're on the lender side, but you know what? You buy and sell houses too, and if you're not a
Yep.
real estate agent, we're all tied into different opportunities. Everybody is. The neighbor just, passed away. Great. Who would you talk to if all of a sudden you knew someone was in a bad situation, right? Those relationships come back when you help enough people, and you feel rewarded at that point to go, you know what, I helped someone enough that they thought of me when something occurred in their life, and I can now help them,
Right.
right?
Yep. I mean, that's gold. If anybody's new to the business, they should be listening to that right there. Whatever this timestamp, 46 minutes, 30 seconds, Alex Saldana, listen to that, a few thousand times if you're new to lending, being a real estate agent, whatever. All right. Last thing. What's the craziest? I want to hear the craziest thing you've seen, the craziest story you've run into as a long time flipping machine. Give me the blow my mind here. I know
Yeah.
you got
So
stories.
I got two. They have to tie in together because one of them
Okay.
is about a personal experience of mine, and then the other one is the experience of the seller that I witnessed. So on the buy side, right? This is how weird stuff can go and how bad it can go fast. So we had our this happened to our most profitable flip ever and our biggest loser ever, right? We lost 30 grand on one. It was the first time it had ever happened. It was so weird. 2019, rates were going up at that time. And we all of a sudden, like all the buyers disappeared. And at the same time, we were flipping a duplex in Denver. We were one of the first to do it. I'm not going to say one of the first. I don't know that for a fact. But hell, I felt like everyone started doing it afterwards, where you could buy a duplex, split it up into two lots, and sell them individually as affordable units. And we bought the property by accident. Like a wholesaler screwed me on another deal. And so put this one in front of my desk before they blasted it out. And we just picked it up. My buddy, talking about relationships, who also flipped houses. I was going to everybody going, hey, what's your numbers on this? What's your numbers on this? And he's like, dude, why don't you split it up? I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, couple grand. And you could split it up. And now instead of having a duplex worth 400, you can have two units worth 250 a piece. So it's like, holy crap, boom, mind blown, right? And that was our most profitable play for years, was splitting up duplexes and triplexes. But got into this duplex, full rehab. I mean, we're talking 200 grand between the two units. These are small 900, 1,000 square foot units. So everything and then some. Um, Talking about contractors and the capabilities of said contractors. Well, they're going to lie to you too, especially electricians. I've found. I know a couple good ones,
Yeah.
but everybody works under somebody else's license apparently, and it's just like a common practice. Joe shows up and he's like, "Yeah, totally good. We'll pull permits. We'll do all this stuff," and then like the permits being pulled under some business name, and you're like, "Who is that? Who am I paying? Am I paying Joe or am I paying ABC Electric?" Right? So they come in, they do their thing. It's like 12 grand to rewire both of these units, full rewire job. Um, Whole lots of crap going on with the city. This electrician was in between getting the work done and getting the rough inspection done, it was found out that he was screwing over other people on jobs, and the city has now got it out for him. They see his name on the permit. Now they got it out for me. They come in, they do the rough inspection, they pick us apart. Okay, we get past that. Well, 2 days later, show up. All of a sudden, the lights aren't working. This isn't working. That's not working. Someone came in, broke into the crawl space, clipped out all the wiring in the house.
Whoa.
Now, recycle value on that much wire, maybe $100, right? Cost us another 12 grand. Now everything was done half-assed though, because half of it was already run. So they put all these junction boxes in and all this crap, and it took us months to get our certificate of occupancy with the city. I got to the point where I was recording the home inspectors because every inspector was coming by saying a different thing. Like, it was a hot garbage dumpster fire mess. And that was the worst part I ever had on a flip. And that's when I changed completely. One GC, fully licensed, is going to save me more money than trying to piecemeal it out and work with all the subs. Okay. Learned our lesson, an expensive lesson. Now, on the homeowner side, we have seen hoarding houses galore, right? We see it all. I went to one. Rabbits in cages, pig outside. This was in like Littleton, dude. Like, this is not in the farm country, anything. This is a regular house, 8,000 square foot lot, multiple dogs, multiple cats, half hoarding house is what I'm going to call it. And we were talking a little bit unstable, emotionally, damaged household. And the son starts coming down from upstairs. Teenager kid. And he looks like he's in rough shape, right? Big night out, whatever. And he comes up to her. He's got blood coming out of his ear. And his mom goes, "Hey, let me see that ankle." And he holds it up and whatever. I didn't look too closely. I was just trying to stay out of it. And he's like, "Hey, do you have a few bucks?" He was going to go get one of those earwax candles to get the blood out of his ear. I was like, oh my God. So I gave him a few bucks. She didn't have anything. Uh-huh. And then he goes and leaves, and I'm just kind of stunned at like, what the hell did I just kind of witness here? And what's with his ankle? Is he okay? Well, he got hit by a car last night. Oh, while skateboarding. Oh. And okay, is the other person involved? Like, does he need to go to the hospital? Like, what's going on? No, he just broke his ankle and had some sort of head injury. So, I'll set it later.
Whoa.
What? I was like, okay. That's what we've got here. So yeah, you forget, how hard up some people can be. And in this business, you see everything under the sun. Yeah. And it makes you appreciative for what you do have. And B, knowing that there are some people that you can help more than others, get into a better situation, is nice. That's the value we provide, right? Most people think that us flippers are ripping everybody off. It's not actually the case. Yes, we do profit off of our business, and yes, we will share exactly what that number is, right? Yeah. But we offer the other solutions so that way they can profit off of their best decision they made, which was to buy that house in the first place. But yeah, you see a lot of crazy stuff, and I got stories up the wazoo like that, my friend. That's just the tip of the iceberg.
I tell you, I'm going to give you one more story, but before I do, I just love the fact that you go in and you give people 3 options, right? Yeah. Hey, we can buy this from you cash, we can list it for you, or we can fix this thing up if you've got the time, and we can really maximize your value here. I love that. All right, I'll give you my story, and then we're going to sign off here. Yep. So me and the boys are building a house portfolio, right? Buying duplexes, fourplexes, single family homes, and we're putting a big portfolio together. And so we're looking at house after house after house. I mean, we go out 8-10 hours a day inspecting houses.
Jeez.
And my buddy Bo, who I hope listens to this, we go into this one house, and it was a mentally challenged or mentally disabled young man, right? He was probably 16, and he was home alone. And he answered the door and said, "Are you the realtors?" And we had our agent with us, and yes, and so he let us in. And then Bo stopped walking the property with us. And I'm like, dude, are you getting tired here? Like, come on, Bo, I need you to be on your A game. And he's like, no, I just wanted to stay between that kid and that loaded AK-47 in the corner. And this young, mentally challenged young man was left home alone with a loaded AK in the corner, and that was his babysitter, his self-defense. And I didn't know this. I didn't even notice that thing in the corner till we were walking out. You know, I had walked the whole house. Bo just stood there. And I'm like, come on, Bo, you getting lazy on me? You getting tired? Like,
Wow.
5 up. Let's go get some coffee. He's like, no, I just want to stay in between that kid and that AK.
Good on him.
Whew,
Wow.
that woke me up. So anyway, there's my story.
Woo.
You know how we do it here. We always end with some gratitude. What are you grateful for, my friend?
The ability to adapt to what is being thrown at us. Something personally had just happened this last week. I won't go into details, but we ended up being able to be the rock and stability for someone who is in desperate need of it.
Mm.
And we don't have a ton, right? Like, I'm not this millionaire. Like, dude, 3 of us live in a 1,200 square foot house, right? Both of us run businesses out of this house. Like, we're not in a mansion by any means. And we make it work and we make it fly, and we're comfortable with doing that because we know if things go south, we have the ability to remain in this lifestyle. And we were able to be that pillar for somebody else who needed it, and it made us stand back and go, I'm glad we've made the decisions we've made, because if this is a turning point in that person's life where they could either go one direction or another, and they choose to go on a good path, like, I'm happy that we are able to be that.
Wow, that's awesome. I bet you were calm. I
Yes.
bet you did it with a calm demeanor.
100%.
I like that. I know that you do get, you are rewarded financially for being humble, right? For not getting over your skis, not buying a 10,000 square foot house just because you can, just because the bank says yes.
Yeah.
So no, I like all that. I tell you what I'm grateful for, man, is that you're joining me every Friday, that we're being able to talk on a regular basis. That's an honor and a privilege to have access to your brain, and like to keep doing this for many, many years. So thank you, Alex. And I will see you next time, my friend.
Thank you.
See you, buddy.